How's it sound, Scott? Oh, good. I'd like to welcome everyone to this morning's meeting. Turnout's a little light, but some people looking out there seeing no snow decided, hey, I'm going to go party. Yeah, it's kind of interesting. I'm starting to get emails back from our people who are returning from Florida. I think this is 1 year they were glad they were there. Anyway, we're glad you could join us this morning. We see the golfers on our hat. Rather unusual. And let's see, where did my there he is. All right, would you volunteer to lead us in an invitation this morning?
All right, let's just have a moment to give thanks here. Lord and Heavenly Father, we just come before you today. We just thank you for being amongst like-minded people. We just ask that you would just make us mindful of how good we have in this country, that you would empower us, that we might be good stewards of the miracle that you gave us with our government, our system of government, and our resources that we have here, Lord. Just ask you to empower people that think along the lines of the founding fathers of this nation, Lord. Weaken those that would take those blessings away from us, that would destroy this country, that hate this country, Father. We just, again, thank you for this day. We thank you for our speakers. We just ask that you would be with them and give them a clear presentation to us, and that we might have open ears and open hearts, that we might be able to understand what they're telling us and to take it with us and apply it in our daily life. For we ask all this in Christ's name. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, Mike. Really enjoy your prayers. And would you stand with me and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And I'm kind of reminded of a recent incident where I saw a judge giving the Pledge of Allegiance, and he was facing the state flag instead of the U.S. flag. I imagine he was, as I was a year before, when I faced Lisa instead of the flag.
Maybe I had a flag on my t-shirt, I don't know.
Could be, but I remember I was a little embarrassed about that. Fortunately, nobody reminded me too many times. Anyway, elected officials, we don't have a lot here today. I saw Nancy Abbott, Clerk of Courts, all right, Medina Municipal Court, also our Medina County Republican Party Chairman. All right, let's see, any others? I didn't see any others. Going once, going twice. Candidates, we do have one, and we'll be having our guest speaker do that. New guests, do we have new guests here for the first time? Raise your hand. Several. We always appreciate having new guests. A lot of our people just look at it at the meetings online on the internet, but we always like seeing new people and encourage people to round up their friends, round up some neighbors. If they have kids in high school, definitely get them involved, because we got a youth group starting up in Medina County, and we'd like to just propagate that all over the state if we can. They're called Teenage Republicans. They've also been called Young Americans for Freedom. They'll use any name they need to promote the conservative movement. And we think that's great. And speaking of which, they do have a special announcement. I saw John and Julia here. There they are. Would you like to come up and make your announcement? And we'll have to promote that on our website as well.
Great.
Okay, as Mr. Woods said, I am Julia Paulus, and this is John DiJacobi. John is the chair and I co-chair the Medina County Teenage Republicans, which is a countywide organization. And we also run Young Americans for Freedom, which is a chapter of a national organization, which we actually hold the strongest chapter in the country, which is really exciting. So, thank you. So with that being said, we actually have the honor to bring in an amazing speaker to our high school that will be held on April 17th. I passed out some flyers if anyone else needs one. I have a lot. So that will be held on April 17th at 7 o'clock. It's going to be an open event and free for all, so we would like to formally invite everybody here to come to that. It's going to be, she speaks to all, the speaker is Kate Obenshane. And she is actually the former chairwoman of the Virginia GOP, the first female chair of the Virginia GOP in history, which is a very exciting thing. She's also a national speaker. She's a guest on Fox News often, actually. She speaks on the O'Reilly Factor, which is great. She's a renowned author. She wrote The Divider-in-Chief, which is a great book. That was one of my inspirations about our president. So she has a few different organizations that she founded for female leadership and leadership in the youth. So her speech is basically going to be about what kind of courage it requires to be a leader. And she really emphasizes the founding fathers, which is great. She's extremely inspirational. And like I said, it will be free of charge. The event will be held at Highland High School, which is where we go, in the auditorium. It's pretty, not very far from here in Medina. The address is listed on there if you guys would like to look into that. It's close, maybe 20 minutes from here. We would also like to ask/invite you to see if you can get any youth there, because this is the greatest way to get the youth involved, is getting them inspired. And we are really working on outreach as much as we possibly can, but we are also looking to organizations like MCFAN, like Concerned Veterans for America, to help us with that. And any of you that would like to invite anyone else that you know that would be interested, it's open, free for everyone. We want to get as many people in there to hear as we possibly can. There will be refreshments provided afterwards for free, and also any elected officials or candidates that are interested in attendance, we have a space open in the program to honor them. So we would like to do that, and if there are any questions at all, feel free to shoot me an email. I have our TARS business cards I can hand out if anyone would like one of those, just to send me an email and let me know if you know of any elected officials that will be coming, just so we can definitely honor them. So, all right, that's all for me. Thank you.
It's kind of interesting. About 100 years ago, I was in the Marines, and some of my colleagues were back here on college campuses protesting against the Vietnam War. There was only one organization on campus that was standing up for the conservative principles. That was Young Americans for Freedom. So I made a mental note of that organization. Ended up being a chapter chairman myself after I got out of the Marines. It's interesting, but the national organization is still headed by some of my colleagues from way back when, Ron Robinson, among others. So I'm glad to see they're still doing good things. I'm looking forward here, and the progressive movement has been at this for almost 100 years now. The fundamental transformation of our nation. And I'm running out of gas here. I don't have another 100 years to put in on this cause. I'm going to have to get as far as I can and hand off to another generation or two to finish what I've begun. And that's why I'm so enthusiastic that there are young people getting started and going to carry on the torch for all of us. The ones in the middle, the young Republicans, the 18 to 40, It's difficult to get traction there because, okay, they got the careers, they got the education, they got the sprouting family. There's just aren't enough hours in the day. It's like these people our age that have 5 kids. So, but when they're teenagers, I think they're interested. There's a real opportunity there, especially now they're saying, okay, I go to 4 years of college, I get myself so deeply in debt I'll never see the way out of it, and when I graduate there'll be no jobs. Thank you, Obama. The young people are getting it. They're absolutely getting it. And I think everything we can do to support them is a good thing. I encourage everybody to be kind of a recruiter of young people. There are young people in your neighborhood or in your church. Maybe you know a school board member that needs to know about the TARS and start a chapter up on their campus, etc. So I'd like to encourage everybody to help me promote these young people. All right, we have 2 guest speakers today. One of whom is Chris Sawicki, who is running for state representative. I think everybody knows here that, Ron Falcone. I did not introduce you as a elected official, maybe just mayor of You can go now. All right, Chris Sawicki, candidate for state representative. Bill Batchelder is going to be term limited out, so he can't run again. He still won't divulge what he's going to do after he grows up. I'm sure he's going to do something. We're just waiting with bated breath to find out what. But of course, he's got to finish his job as speaker before he goes on to that next chapter. Otherwise, it might negatively impact what he does as speaker. So it's interesting that we've got these huge shoes to fill. I mean, Bill Batchelder is quite a unique individual, but he's been around since Moses, I think. He is Moses. All right. So it's going to be interesting to try to fill those shoes. I guess it's probably impossible, but hopefully we'll have another good, solid conservative to fill in that seat in the House. And Chris is tossed his hat in the ring, has made good use of the opportunity to speak to us today. There you are, Chris. Why don't you come on up and tell us a little bit about yourself, your campaign, and what you would like to do. And we talked about having about 15 minutes. If you need a few more minutes to answer Q&A, that's fine. So.
Hi, thanks for coming. Usually I have a well-prepared speech that I spent the entire week before writing, and I get up here and read it. And I watched a video of that last week and realized it's boring as hell, so I'm not going to do that today. A little bit about me. I grew up in Brunswick until I was about 17 years old, and my parents moved to Sharon Center, lived in Medina County my whole life. After Brunswick High School, went to the Medina County Career Center, took the carpentry program out there, and the day I graduated from high school, I started my own business, and I'm still in that business today. I've never really worked for anybody in my entire life. I've always been self-employed. I grew that small business into a partnership with the Home Depot, and now for the last 7 years, I provide installation services for 9 Home Depot stores in Northeast Ohio, and it keeps us really busy. But I decided to run for office on top of the stress and the obligation of running this business, because I have young children. I have 2 daughters, 7 and 9, and I really worry about what America and what Ohio is going to look like when they're my age in 30 years if we keep on the course that we're on right now. Will they have the opportunity to just get out of high school and start a business and be successful and earn a living, or will their only option be government dependence and debt? So I figure the best way to ensure that government is doing all it can to make sure that doesn't happen is to be part of it myself and make sure that, conservative views are present in our state government. We see Republican leaders leaning further and further left all the time, abandoning what I view to be the core principles of the party. And it's very discouraging, the left has gone and become socialists, and some of them may even be communists. And when asked in a non-political sense, where people stand, most of the people in this country align themselves with conservative values, but yet we're really lacking that representation of those conservative values at all levels of government. We see things like Obamacare and Medicaid expansion and Common Core and Agenda 21, and these things, they don't really benefit the general population whatsoever, but they're being forced on us. Government-run healthcare, for instance, we voted 2-1 against in Ohio, but the State House went ahead and they pushed through Medicaid expansion, which is facilitating the implementation of Obamacare. It's directly against what we spoke out and said we didn't want. So that to me is pretty poor representation in an area we need to improve on. The needs of the people and their concerns, for me, will always come first before a party agenda. Because I believe that's the ultimate goal of a representative, is to represent the people and their concerns. And if the people don't want something, we shouldn't force it on them. As Jim was saying about the education and the youth, the Common Core, in my opinion, has got to go. They've really rewritten some things in history that don't benefit the conservative cause whatsoever. Along from they take things that we learned and they've changed it. 2 + 2 doesn't equal 4 in the traditional sense anymore. When my daughters come home with math homework, I can't sit down and show them how to do their homework the way I learned how to do it, because if they do it that way, they get it marked wrong. So it's actually discouraging parent interaction. If anything, we want more parent interaction with the youth. We don't want this homework that you can't even sit down and help your kids with. So in my opinion, Common Core is a big one, and it's got to go. Agenda 21 is another thing. There's a big push, NEOSCC here in Northeast Ohio, to promote, what's really is Agenda 21, and a plan to redistribute wealth from the suburbs into the inner city. And I don't really think it has much benefit to any of us, and I'd like to see things like that. A lot of states have taken a proactive lead in getting programs like that completely out of their state. State government is, the Constitution makes state government the primary lawmaking body. The federal government was not supposed to be this way. And state government needs to be strong, and it needs to push back, and it needs to stand up for your rights. The Constitution's not going to enforce itself. And I hear that argument constantly over the supremacy clause, that states don't have the right to nullify federal law. Well, the supremacy clause only applies to things the federal government has the right to control. It doesn't apply to everything. That's why the 10th Amendment was added after the supremacy clause, to make sure that the states knew what their role was and that they would exercise that role. Not only does the states have a right to nullify invalid and unconstitutional federal law, they have an obligation to protect their citizens. We have a nifty little constitutional amendment, that says in Ohio you cannot be forced to be fined for not purchasing health care. Well, the amendment is there, but what are we doing with it? Are we doing anything with it to fight and protect that we're not being forced to purchase and be fined for not having health care? I understand there's some bills in the works that are going to nullify future gun control laws if they pass, and that's great, because that's a very big issue for me, is gun control. My grandfather was a Class 3 firearms dealer, and I grew up around guns all my life, and the Second Amendment is one of the most important issues to me, because it's the right that protects all others. And Thomas Jefferson said it best when he said that the Second Amendment won't be needed until they try to take it. Other big issues that I feel facing Ohioans, I keep hearing about job creation, and the government needs to, government doesn't create jobs. And if I hear one more politician say they're creating jobs, I'm going to scream, because It's not the government, this isn't communism, it's not the government's role to create jobs. It's our role to create a friendly environment that encourages jobs and encourages jobs growth, but government does not create jobs. Private sector creates jobs. Go through my notes here. I'm very much pro-life, and I would like to see the heartbeat bill passed, and I will always support any pro-life attempts. You know, I don't feel that it's up to humans to choose. You know, I don't think it's a choice. I think God's choice is who is born into this world. It's not our choice to pick and choose. So I would support the heartbeat bill. And mainly, my biggest priority will be to make sure whatever decision I make, no matter what I'm voting on in the state, will be based on what gives you more freedom and what is in your best interest. You know, the individual prosperity has never been the result of a government program. It's the result of you having the freedom to choose your own path and make your own decisions. So every decision I make will always be prioritized by what gives you the most freedom and is in your best interest. That's about all I have, so I'll take questions if anybody has any.
Yeah, I was wondering if you could give me one or two examples of what is happening with that NEOC, specific examples of how that's being used as an Agenda 21 to disperse, you know, wealth and stuff. I mean, concrete examples. I've been trying to read up on this, I truly have. So I'm just coming from a place of honesty. I'd like to know what exactly.
Boy, of course, Dave Frost is not okay. But, you know, what's happening there is you have to look at when the United States signed on to implement Agenda 21, it was done so through federal agencies that only answer the president, that don't need congressional approval, like HUD and EPA and things like that. Well, NEOSCC gets all their money from a HUD. It's not a grant, it's a cooperative agreement where there are deliverables. Everything that NEOSCC does is under the influence or with the approval of HUD. That 3-year study, I mean, those things were predetermined before that study began. If you read the contract between HUD and NEOSCC, I mean, you know, it's 3 years of study.